Joining us now, House Oversight Ranking Member, he's Congressman James Comer, along with Optimal Capital Director of Strategy, Frances Stacy. It's great to have you both on. Congressman, your reaction to Hillary Vaughn's report. Biden is being accused of destroying U.S. energy independence. He won't talk to U.S. oil producers, but he's now going to, talking with Russia, Venezuela, and Saudi Arabia. What do you think?
Well, the Democrats in Congress must be having whiplash right now because just a few months ago, the Democrats had the oil executives in front of my committee, the House Oversight Committee, and asked them if they would pledge to cut production. Now we have the President of the United States demanding that the oil companies increase production. So I don't think the Democrats really understand what's going on here. All they know is they're polling bad and the midterm elections are right around the corner, and they just got a wake-up call with that special election in Texas yesterday.
Yeah, to the Congressman's point, Frances, Main Street and Wall Street, they're asking how high will inflation go? I mean, we know the government did an open fire hydrant of pandemic spending equal to a fifth of the economy. Ben Bernanke, former Fed chair, he's talking about the average CPI inflation rate rose by more than 7% a year from the late 60s to 81. Then it hit 13%. Where is it headed?
Well, that remains to be seen. It depends on oil prices and it depends on food prices. That's what's keeping it elevated. But so many other things in the background are actually softening on inflation, but it's how it's weighted. So for oil to contribute to CPI at the rate that it's been contributing, it's got to go to 140 a barrel. We don't really see that happening. So we do feel like inflation is going to pause or it's going to back off a little bit, but it's going to remain above 7% likely till the end of the year, which means that that's not going to make that big of a difference for Americans, even if it slows a little.
Yeah, so to what Frances is saying, Congressman, the Washington Post is saying the president, he's hauling into the Oval Office his staffers. He's upset they're doing political gimmicks he says privately won't work to stop inflation, like the trip to the Iowa biofuels factory in April. But he's also putting even more rules and regulations on shipping. He wants a surtax on excess profits at oil companies. Who gets to define what are excess profits? What do you make of the mayhem in the White House?
Well, first of all, this president is not connected with the American people. He's out of touch. His policies reflect that. But one thing Joe Biden can do is what all politicians who have been in office for over 30 years could do. They can read a poll, and he sees the disaster is looming. So he's wanting to blame someone. He's blaming his staffers for not keeping him abreast on what's going on, especially with things like the baby formula crisis and with how bad the American workers are suffering now because of inflation. So they don't have a plan. But the basic Democrat ideology is, in a time of crisis, let's have more government. When Republicans know the plan is to get the government out of the way because the government is the problem. And the problem with high oil prices is because Biden's energy policies have created a crisis. They've limited production, they've banned drilling, they canceled the Keystone Pipeline. These are all things that need to be reversed. So Biden's big government agenda, his Green New Deal agenda has backfired on him. And like I said earlier, the Democrats in Congress have just had whiplash because they don't know which direction to go now.
Frances, to what the congressman is saying, you know, you're going to see the next soundbite. The White House is maligning oil and gas. Oil and gas employs millions of workers, basically calling them warmongering profiteers. You're also going to see the White House reiterate what the president campaigned on, that, yeah, Biden wants to shut down U.S. oil and gas. Watch this.
So we know where to put the blame on the war, but oil companies, they have oil refineries, they have responsibility too. What they have been doing is taking advantage of the war.
No more subsidies for fossil fuel industry, no more drilling on federal lands, no more drilling, including offshore, no ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. Ends.
I know the president once said that he was going to end fossil fuel. Is that now off the table?
No, we are going to continue to move forward with our clean energy proposal, our climate change proposal.
They're going to end fossil fuels, Frances? What do you think?
No, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. We're going to have oil for another 10 years, even with all the best efforts to go greener. And it's not that going greener is a bad thing. It's just that we don't even have charging stations that are ubiquitously placed around the country. Many people do not have savings. They've lost a lot of money. They're suffering from inflation. They're putting things on their credit cards. They can't just go out and buy an electric vehicle that's brand new. So this is completely unrealistic. And I think it's a really sad day in American politics when you have an administration attacking any industry that represents a huge portion of Americans. I think this is going to show up in the midterms, and I think it's going to be regrettable. I actually think this is going to be one of the biggest failures in American history is how Joe Biden has managed the oil and gas industry.
So what Frances is saying, a White House is attacking an industry. The Biden White House just asked a Louisiana federal judge, Congressman, to uphold president's ban on new federal oil and gas leasing, and they want to now limit fuel exports. We've never seen a government attacking a U.S. industry like this.
Well, the Democrats in Congress are joining Joe Biden. They want to attack every big profitable company in America. What they don't realize, in addition to how badly we need cheap oil in America, is the fact that the energy industry provides good paying jobs, many union jobs. So they're attacking their own people who they claim they represent in working class America. So it makes no sense. It's bad policy. They're punishing working Americans by forcing them to pay more at the pumps, and they're punishing the people in the energy industry who work and have good jobs and are able to afford nice things for their family because they work hard in a good industry like the energy industry.
You know, Frances, Trump's endorsement, right? Trump's endorsement, he now stands at more than 120, it might be 130 of his candidates that Trump picked versus 8 losers in the primaries so far year to date. January 6 hearings continued today. Democrats and media call the Trump candidates, quote, the big lie candidates. We've got that. But, Frances, we have critics are saying open borders, 40-year high in inflation, record gas prices, rising crime. And we have a baby formula shortage. Let's watch Ronald Reagan. Watch this.
Recession is when your neighbor loses his job. A depression is when you lose yours. And recovery is when Jimmy Carter loses his. When the American people cried out for economic help, Jimmy Carter took refuge behind a dictionary.
Are we going to recover only if the president loses? And what is the president taking refuge behind now?
Well, it's interesting what you're saying about, Trump and, how he's affecting these races, because it's interesting to hear his tape from one of the debates about where he confronted Joe Biden about the oil and gas industry. And he even named $5 for gas. So history repeats itself. And I think we are seeing that. And it's great to have this tape. But I think we're going to see a lot of Republican support.
He's taking refuge behind Susan Rice and Ron Klain, right? And John Kerry, Gina McCarthy. Okay, Congressman Comer and Frances Stacy, thanks for joining us. It's good to see you.